Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So for this video, I want to talk about 10 things that Black men can do to empower themselves and their community. The first thing is this. Brothers need to focus on God consciousness and morality. That is the foundation. Because when we look at many of the problems that plague our community, we see that there is a moral component to it. When we see the violence that plagues our communities, where we see people killed at young ages, like this rap artist that was gunned down yesterday. When we look at the gang violence in some communities, drug violence, when we look at drug addiction, alcoholism, all of those things are linked to a lack of God consciousness, a lack of morality. When we look at situations like teenage pregnancy, we look at single parent households. All of these things play a vital role in the destruction of the Black community. And these kind of things are pervasive in part due to a lack of God consciousness and morality in our communities. So that's the first thing. We need to have a God consciousness and a sense of morality so that we can avoid the drugs, so that we can avoid the alcohol, so we can avoid the gangs, so that we can avoid the misogyny, so that we can avoid all these problems that plague our community. So that's the first thing. The second thing is education. And by education, I don't just mean a college education. I also mean education about the knowledge of self. We need to know who we are as a people. We need to know our history. We need to know our accomplishments, our inventions, our role in this world. That's the only way we can shatter this myth and lie of white supremacy. It is the only cure to the Black inferiority complex that plagues a lot of our people. Because we will never advance as a people as long as we continue to believe that we are inferior, as long as we continue to believe that somehow pale skin makes somebody superior. So we have to shatter that myth to pieces. So that's the first thing. And the only way you can do that is gain knowledge of self. Read about your history, read about your accomplishments as a people. Also, we need practical skills, whether we're talking about a college education or education in some kind of trade, because without practical skills, you will not be able to secure employment. You will not be able to create your own source of employment or your own business without certain skills and certain knowledge. That is vital if you are to be a provider and a protector in your community. That's the role of a man, to provide and protect his community and his family. So that's number two, education. Another thing that we need in our community is mentorship. That's another way that we can empower Black men and empower the Black community. We need people to pass on their knowledge and wisdom to the next generation, to the younger brothers, because we have young brothers who don't have a male role model in their lives. They don't have a father present in their household to guide them, to give them information about things to avoid, problems to avoid, to give them a practical example of what a man is supposed to do and what a man is supposed to be. You know, a lot of brothers, without that male leadership, they cling on to negative models of what manhood is. They cling on to the gang image. They cling on to the thug image or the pimp image. So it's important that we have mentorships in our community. Our young people need to see successful Black men so that they can know that that is something that they can actually become. And mentorship is important as well for even for brothers that are educated, that have a certain level of success. You need to have people that can guide you in your career path, people that can help you with practical advice in your career. For instance, if you're a doctor or a lawyer or some other professional, you still need guidance. You still need somebody that can give you certain advice about how to deal with certain matters that are new to you. So that's number three, mentorship. Number four is using birth control and making wise dating choices. That is so important because a lot of dreams get derailed because of unplanned pregnancies, for instance. You have young men who are still in college that end up getting a woman pregnant. And in some cases, I've seen situations where a brother had to stop going to college in order to get a job and provide for his child. So his dreams were temporarily deferred, or they may even be permanently deferred because of poor decisions, the failure to use birth control. And that can have an impact on you financially, obviously. If you have to pay child support, and you should pay child support, I mean, you should fulfill your obligations as a man, but that can have a devastating impact on you financially in terms of your credit, in terms of the resources that you have available to save and, save for investing in real estate or save for other purposes. It can have an impact on you. And by failing to um, make those kind of choices with respect to birth control and all that, you create a situation where we have the single parent household syndrome in our community, which is a very real issue that impacts the health and the vitality of our communities. And, dating choices are very important. Choosing the right woman to be with is one of the most important decisions that you can ever make. Because if you make the wrong choice, it can have a devastating impact on you and on your life and your community. So that brings me to number 5, like marriage and family life. We need to go back to the traditional family, man. We've drifted away from that. It's become normal to have single parent households. And this is not to knock all people that are in that kind of situation. A lot of people make the most of it. A lot of people who are born in single parent households or raised in single parent households still go on to be successful and prosperous and all that. But we know that there are tangible benefits to marriage. There are tax benefits, there are community benefits. Marriages are more likely to be more prosperous than a situation where you have single people. There are health benefits to being married. So I think that we need to return back to the traditional idea and concept of marriage, the nuclear family. That's one of the key ways that we can empower ourselves and our communities, that we can continue to pass on and build wealth in our communities. That's very important. Number 6 is knowing your purpose. You can't be empowered if you don't know your purpose. And one of the ways to know your purpose is to know what drives you, to understand what is your passion, and to harness that passion. Use that passion so that you can provide for yourself and your family. Figure out a way to use that passion to profit from it, to put it to practical use, and to use it as a means to enrich yourself and your community. And number 7 is self-care. It's very important that we take care of ourselves, exercise and eat proper foods, um, go to the doctor on a regular basis, because you can't be empowered if you're sick. You can't be empowered if you're dead. So we need to be focused on maintaining our health, maintaining, our vitality, because we know about the problems that plague our communities, like high blood pressure, diabetes, and other health conditions. And the only way we can address those conditions is by eating properly, getting regular exercise, getting regular checkups. Because unfortunately, a lot of us, the brothers, we don't go to the doctor on a regular basis like we should. And we can't be strong fathers or strong husbands if we're sick, if we're dying relatively young or too soon because of our failure to maintain our health. So number 8 is community involvement. That's another thing that we have to do in order to empower ourselves and our communities. We have to be engaged. We need to be a part of our neighborhood groups. They have neighborhood watches and neighborhood community groups that deal with various problems that arise in the community. We need to find out what is our neighborhood organization and find out what we can do to contribute to that neighborhood organization so that we can beautify our neighborhoods, so that we can take care of our neighborhoods, look out for crime in our neighborhoods, clean up our neighborhoods, literally and figuratively. You have people in inner cities and certain communities that people don't take care of. You see trash everywhere in certain communities. Just because you're poor, it doesn't mean you have to live in squalor. Just because a community is in the urban area doesn't mean that we have to accept garbage being everywhere in our community. We need to literally and figuratively clean up our communities. We need neighborhood watch programs. You have other groups of people that actually go on patrols. They report crimes that occur in their community. And that's not snitching. Calling for criminals to be held accountable, calling for justice in your community is not snitching. It's about cleaning up your community and realizing your responsibility in your community. Other things that people can do is give to shelters. Like, instead of just giving to people who panhandle on the streets, you can support actual shelters that provide housing and food for people who are in need. Those are the things that we need to be about. We need to be about fulfilling neighborly needs as noted in the Holy Quran. We need to be focused on those things. It's noted in the Bible and other scriptures, and just, common sense type of things. We need to be concerned about our brothers and sisters in our communities by giving back and getting involved. Getting involved in anti-violence organizations, like here in Baltimore, we have Ceasefire. And this particular presentation, it applies to myself and to each and every one of you. This is a source of inspiration for myself and for hopefully for you as well. We need to be politically involved in our communities. We need to be a part of organizations, for instance, that are fighting against police brutality, organizations that are fighting against racism, organizations that are fighting against poverty, organizations that are fighting to improve education in our community, fighting to improve healthcare in our communities. That's what we need to do. We have to go beyond just being voices of opposition, on YouTube, or people who are armchair revolutionaries. We need to be engaged in our communities. We need to be involved. We need to get our hands dirty and get physically involved in the improvement of our community. We can't sit around and just blame society for the condition if we don't try to do anything to improve the condition of our people ourselves. So, and number 9 is we need to vote and we need to be engaged when it comes to civics. We need to educate ourselves about the various candidates that are running for office. We have an election coming up this year. In Baltimore, we have our primaries coming up. We need to educate ourselves about each and every one of the candidates on the ballot. Find out their positions on the issues that matter to us, the issues that matter to our community. Politicians make all kinds of decisions that impact our lives. And it's very important for us to make the right choices, to make sure that we have the right team in place in these political positions to enact certain laws or to engage in certain activities to improve the plight of our people. That's what we need to be focused on. You can't complain about police brutality if you're not voting for the mayor in your city, deciding who's going to be the mayor, deciding who's going to be your state prosecutor or your DA. Those are decisions that affect these problems like police brutality. You can't complain about failing schools if you're not voting for the members of your school board. You just can't do it. So that's number 9, voting and civic engagement. Number 10 is entrepreneurship. That's something that we need to get more involved in. We need to try to build more businesses in our community. Brother Malcolm X talked about like the need for Black people to control the businesses and the politics in their community. Too often in our communities, We see that outsiders control all the businesses, practically all the businesses. You go in Baltimore City, for instance, on any block in any black neighborhood, you will see that the majority of the businesses are controlled either by white people or by immigrants. And there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with a group of people that don't control any or very few of the businesses in their community. There's something wrong with that. You go to Chinatown, you'll see that the Chinese control their businesses. That's the way it used to be, like at least in many communities. Like I know in DC that's changed. For instance, you got all these corporations that have taken over Chinatown, but in many communities, you see a Chinatown where you have most of the businesses owned by the Chinese. Or here in Baltimore, you have Little Italy, where all the businesses are owned by Italians. Or in like a place like Dearborn, Michigan, where you have an Arab community and the Arabs own and control the businesses in that Arab Muslim community. We're the only ones allowing everybody and anybody to control the businesses in our community. And that has to stop if we are to be empowered as a people. We need to control something in our community. These other groups of people, they wouldn't allow us to come in their community and just take over everything in their community, take over the businesses and everything. We need to control ourselves. I mean, that's the only way you can be empowered is if you have control over your destiny. Our destiny too often is controlled by others. We have all these businesses owned by these other people. We have these media outlets controlled by other people where we're not able to put out our messages. Instead, we rely on, mainstream media to tell us what's important and what's valuable. So those are a few things that black men in particular can do to empower themselves and their community. And I know that a lot of these things are universal. They apply to women as well. But tell me what you think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.